Hey, everybody, welcome back to Conversations in Ken's Café. Today, we're talking about gardening, watering, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's just jump right in, guys. I know we were supposed to have Tyler Platt on from Grassroots Fabric Pots. He had to cancel for today. He has rebooked already for Saturday in a couple of weeks. So just to let you know that. So, water. It is the most important substance for all of us, whether that's a plant, an animal, or a human being. So, if you have the fortune of having a property that has a spring on it, you are lucky. One of the things you have to understand, there's two types of springs. There's a deep well spring, but there's also a shallow well spring. So let's talk about the shallow well spring. That's a spring that does not run continuously. It only runs after a rain event. So what's basically happening there, guys? Hi, Mad Dog. Is when it rains, the water is being able to penetrate into an area and be stored, and then it flows out. And once the water is used up, it stops flowing. So consider that in our environment, we have a lot of substances that we really don't want in our environment, in our oxygen. That is the water you're gathering from that type of spring. So it's not going to be as clean as water from a deep well spring. Okay. The deep well spring, that's being forced up from deep underground. So it's coming up through the layers of the substrate, being cleansed, having minerals, etc., added to it as it comes up, and then you're getting it out. And the other type of spring doesn't have that. It's not going to be as clean, etc., as the deep water spring. So with that understood, if you have that deep water spring, congratulations, use that water. You can have that water tested, make sure that there's not an excess of heavy metals, etc., in it, but you're generally going to be perfectly fine. City water, for you guys, unfortunately, there's issues right from the very start because a municipal water supply is treated water. And they're putting in, hey, David, a lot of stuff that we don't want in our bodies because it kills the biology in our bodies. It kills the biology in the soil, in the plants, etc. So if you can get away from having to use that raw or right out of the tap, you're much better off. And that's where we've had I think his name's David from the name's gone. It was just there. I think that my brain is fried today. Biochar. Anyway, you can go back and watch some of the other shows for his channel, but they sell in all over the place little canisters that you can hook up to your gardening hose that is going to clean your water. Okay. Hey, same day. And thank you. Yeah, we tried to bring good knowledge and understanding for everybody. So if you get one of those canisters, then you can use that water. It's going to take out the chlorine. It's going to take out the chloramine. It's going to take out things that aren't good and healthy from that water. And it's not going to damage things as much as you would if you were using the municipal water, just raw out of the top. Blue Sky Biochar. That's what it is. Anyway, You can also look at companies local in your area that can install a filtration system, a whole house, a whole yard. They have them. It's a lot cheaper to look at companies like that than, some of the other companies that are out there. But do your own research, guys, in your local area. Um, it is so important to be using healthy water. So any water that isn't killing the biology is going to be healthy water for what we're talking about right now. So watering is, of course, the one of the main keys, because we can go out without food for weeks on end, literally. Okay, but we can't go without water. Neither can our plants or our animals. They have to have water. So why? Each cell has water molecules inside of it, and we're talking billions of molecules per cell in our bodies. In your plant, those cells are full of water. So water, in order for the biology to build the cell, it has to gather those water molecules together to build the cell. So having good water is, of course, preferable to bad water. Now, there's different, I guess you could call it grades of water. Let's call that deep well spring that you have on your property is A grade water, because that's good water. Okay, the stuff coming out of your municipal tap, that's an F minus water, because they have to, by law, kill the biology that's there in that water, for salmonella and all the different bad biology that can exist in a water system. They have to kill it. Okay, we don't want to be killing it. We want to proliferate biology. Chloramine won't dissipate into the, that's very true. The chloramine, there's a difference between chloramine and chlorine. With chlorine, which is what they used to only put in, you could literally, put out a 5-gallon bucket and let it air out for 24 hours and the chlorine would dissipate. The chloramine doesn't. Okay, that's where you need to filter the chloramine out. So it is extremely important to try to get a water and a water source that is going to be beneficial to you and your body. That's why I have a reverse osmosis system. Is just one, that goes under your tap. And I drink that water, but I add salts. Okay. One of the Baja, the C90, those are the better salts, your Celtic sea salt. A lot of the Himalayan pink salt now is coming out of the Orient, and there's a lot of heavy metals in it. So you have to really be careful with that. The stuff coming out of Baja, California, your Baja salt, your C90, which is coming from basically the same source, that's a good quality salt. The Celtic sea salt is a good quality salt as well. So you just have to add a little bit into your water. I get 2-liter jugs, and I add, just the end of a spoon into the water. I never even taste it. Hi, Sherry. Hi. I never taste the salt, but I know because of the binding with the salt molecule into the water molecule, it goes through my cell and into the cell easily. Where without that, if you could be drinking, like they say, like, drink your, 6 glasses, 8-ounce glasses of water a day. If you're not adding salt to that water, it's not doing the job you think it's doing. So That's where the Korean natural farming talks about having the salt water. And it's very important to have the two together. It's like calcium and magnesium. Calcium won't get into your cells without it being accompanied with the magnesium to bind to it to be able to pull it into your cells. It's the same thing with the salt in the water, but it's all about the amount. Too much salt is very bad. The wrong type of salt is very bad. Your iodized salts have been chemically processed and are not good for your body. They're not natural. Okay. So we talked about adding a little bit of salt into your water, and you can do this in your garden as well. Okay. But mainly you're going to be doing that as a foliar spray. So I know that there's a lot of different methods out there to spray your plants. You have pump sprayers. You can just have like a little, one of those little containers that you spray. Those are obviously, if you're doing house plants, would be a lot easier to try to do your garden. You can get sprayers that go onto a quad. You can use that sprayer if you have a garden tractor. You can attach a cart to the back, load in that 25-gallon tank, and you can use that for spraying. That's basically what I have. I designed a little trailer and a system where I can cover 6 feet, and I do my yard with that. The reason that I'm talking about that is I have one area in my property that's a lot lower than the rest of my property. So it gathered water. For years, I had problems with it gathering water. Over 2-year period, I sprayed that area just with basically worm castings in water. So I took the worm castings, I milked them, I soaked them in a 5-gallon bucket to get out the biology off the worm castings, and I sprayed that onto this area. Within a year, you could see a difference, and in 2 years, it hardly holds water anymore. Why? The biology has went down into that structure, and it has opened that structure up so that the water penetrates instead of just being held there, because I have a heavy clay soil, and it penetrates down. So I'm refreshing my aquifer on my property by doing that. So I mentioned yesterday that if you have a property, you can actually hire companies that'll come out with drones. They'll fly around your property, and they can actually tell you the topographical layout of your property, which is highest, which is lowest. And if you have the ability, and you need enough land, of course, you're not going to do it in the city, but you can find out where you're a little bit higher and lower. You can create swales, okay, to help guide water and keep water onto your property. What you want is to fill up your own property with water. Once your soil structure is full of that water, then it just keeps penetrating down, down, and down, and you're refilling everybody's aquifer and property in your area. And this is what we want to do to help the entire planet, okay? Now, one of the other methods is, say you have a crossing on your property, and you have a pipe going across. You can dig pits on each end, which will actually help to capture silt. And if you watched yesterday's show when we were talking about building your soil, we talked about the necessary or the need for silt. Sand, silt, clay, and organic material. So this is a way you can actually grab your own silt, is by digging this pit, and you can literally do this in a creek. Okay, you can build a pit inside of the creek, and as the water flows by, it'll actually help to settle out the particles in the water flow, and then you can dig that out and you have silt. Now, if you're like I live at the edge of a town, all the water from the town actually flows down to me through a little creek that I have, but all the chemicals that are used in the town and by the people that live in the town, they're going to be swept off in that water and run down. They run down past my property. So I will not use that water. I would not use that silt because it would be harmful to what I'm trying to do because of the chemicals, etc., that are in it. But if you have, excuse me, a clean water source flowing, then you can collect that silt. So probably about 3 weeks ago, somebody was mentioning that someone close to them has a pond, and they had come in and they had cleaned out the pond of all the silt, okay, and just piled it there, and they were asking if they could use it. Hey, Hank, and the same thing is, where is that creek flowing through? Is it coming through an area where there's a lot of chemical usage? You're not necessarily going to want to use that silt before you put it into a compost pile. Okay, so if you add it into a compost pile and allow the biology to chew through those chemicals, because guys, the biology breaks everything down to a molecular level, to the molecules themselves. And that's what you want, because you can take a molecule of glyphosate, and the biology, as long as you have the right biology, can take that molecule and break it apart, and then it's no longer glyphosate. It's the components that made up glyphosate, but being broken apart, they are not going to damage things the way that glyphosate would damage. So if you have a questionable silt, run it through your compost pile. Okay, that's the perfect way to take this stuff out, to break it down and to make it good for your property. Now, if you're, one of these people that are growing cannabis, especially commercial, you're being tested, you're not going to be using that. You're going to be finding sources that are pure, so you don't have to worry. But for your average gardener, you're not going to be worrying about this. So one of the other places that you can get that muck is a slough, a backwater. Hey, David, a backwater of a creek or a river where it's piling up. You can go out and you can get this material and add it to your garden, add it to your lawn. Like, guys, if you have a lawn that's not doing very well, one of the things you can do is, get some sand and spread out the sand, a thin layer, rake it in so the grass comes through. You're supplying the necessary building blocks in your lawn for the biology to break down to make your grass grow that much nicer, fuller, and more vibrant. Okay. If you have low spots on your lawn, that's a great way to get rid of low spots as well, is to use the sand method. Also, once you put the sand down, spray it with biology. That way you have that biology to break that material down and feed your biology that's growing your grass. Hey, Sherry, one of the other things, if it comes back into my brain, yeah, it's gone. As I said, I'm having one of those days, guys. for watering, a lot of people water excessively. Okay. It is a real issue in a lot of areas where they have the high temperatures. So watering excessively has problems built into it. Your roots can't breathe. The biology can't breathe because it's drowning. Okay. That's where mulch is so important, because if you have a layer of mulch in your garden, under your trees, around your flower beds, you can water a lot less than you are now, which, if you're in a city, you're paying for water. Watering less is better. It's not going to allow the water to evaporate. It's going to hold it into your soil structure. And that's where Mother Nature always wants to cover bare ground, because she doesn't want the evaporation. She wants the water to stay for a multitude of reasons, because she's trying to fill the aquifers as well, but have the life that exists in our soils, stay healthy and vibrant. That's the only way she can make plants, because without the water in that cell, the cell isn't going to divide and your plant isn't going to grow. Too much water is bad. Too little water is bad. Okay. Now, I talked yesterday about, how to test for that optimal 70% water content. And that's just grabbing a handful of the soil, squeezing it. If you see a little bit of dribble coming out, you're around that 70%. You don't want to go over that. Okay. You want to hold it in that area, because with watering, if you don't water enough, you'll have patches that go hydrophobic. So what is hydrophobic? It means that the soil has dried out enough where the biology literally goes to sleep. It curls up, goes into a stasis form, and in order for it to come back, because it's grabbed a little bit of water, formed that shell, and any water that's added just flows off of it. In order for it to open up and get to be active again, you have to soak that, allow it to rehydrate. So if you're in your greenhouse, let's say, okay, and you've got a start, say a tomato start, and you're just using the plastic cup method, you pour in the water and you've got holes in the bottom and it just flows right out, that's hydrophobic. Okay. So what you need to do is put that cup into a tray that has water sitting in it above your holes, and give it 45 minutes for that water to suck up into the soil structure. Then after 45 minutes, take it out of the water. It's full. Okay. Get rid of that water, and then keep the moisture content. That's where a lot of people will use the double cup method. So they'll have the one cup, they'll cut the holes in it, they'll put a second cup with no holes, they'll fill it up, or they'll water and make sure that there's some water in the bottom, and then they'll wait the 45 minutes, pull it up. If there's excess water, dump it out. If there isn't any excess water, you haven't watered enough. So you might want to water a little bit more till it starts to flow out again, and then give it, 5 minutes to see. Because if you have hydrophobic soil, the water retention isn't there, but your biology isn't active. And we want active biology. The more active biology in your soil structure, the healthier your whole system is going to be, because your workforce is there and working. So we've talked a little bit about wells. We've talked a little bit about springs. Um, if you have the fortune of being on an acreage where you have a drilled well and it's a quality well, that water should be fine. Now, if you're a commercial grower and you're being tested, you want to have that water tested, make sure that it's safe for you to use. But I'm on an acreage. I actually have two wells on my property, one outside and one inside. And I have a good quality of water for watering my property. A couple of years ago, we had a real bad drought in the fall. I had been spraying the biology onto my property, and my grass stayed lush and green. It didn't dry out like everybody else around me who was having problems. I didn't have any problems. Understand, if there is a temperature differential between night and day, you have dew developing. So I leave my grass about 4 inches long. So it's on the long side for a lot of people, but that allows more available mass for the dew to form on. And then my plants can literally drink and stay healthy from that morning dew. Having your garden can do the same way, okay? But if you don't have mulch down, that water is just going to evaporate. You don't want that evaporation. You want that moisture to soak into your soil and be able to use those molecules for your plant to grow. Yes, morning dew. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing that can sustain your garden and your lawn, your yard, with enough moisture to go through, the drought periods where you're not getting as much moisture, but only if there's plant leaf there. Okay, you need that leaf to be there to be able to capture the dew and draw it into the plant and for that to go down into your soil structure. We really don't get a lot of understanding on how water moves, penetrates, how does a cloud stay in the sky when the water molecules should be falling to the ground as soon as they reach a density that they can't float. Okay, it's not just one or two molecules, it's a combination of tens of millions that form together to make drops, or billions, trillions to form one drop. That's where the fourth phase of water with Gerald Pollock, and we've got actually Gerald's coming on in a couple of weeks. But if you guys study what Gerald Pollock talks about and how the energy actually works inside of the water column and inside of our trees, inside of our bodies, the positive, negative energy and the flow that is created from that positive, negative energy within the water molecules, forming basically a straw to help levitate water, etc. Hey, Food Forest, it all of a sudden starts to dawn on people that this electrical energy to move water to, say, a tree that's 60 feet tall, it creates the pumping action. And you can look at it as, a magnetic levitation of the water, because we're putting negative and positive ions from the water molecules, we're separating them, and we can actually create a flow with that energy, just like a maglev train does in its pads to move the train forward. Okay, That's how these water molecules are forming. It's called EZ water. It's an energized water, and it needs energy. And we talked a little bit about the waveforms yesterday. It is that energy, that ATP, that energy that's drawn in from the sun that helps to charge this system. That's where, that sunlight is so important, not only for your plants, but for us guys. We don't get enough sun. We should be spending a lot more time in the sun to charge our water inside our bodies, to move blood through our system that much better, just like the chlorophyll in the water moves through the plant, is getting that energy from the sun. One of the things that sun gazers do is that morning and evening, when they're gazing at that sun as it's setting and as it's rising, they're getting the frequencies that really benefit the EZ water in the body. MIT did a little thing on water, and they were showing that the ultraviolet in the morning and the evening, instead of one molecule coming off the lake surface at a time, like it would at high noon in evaporation, they were seeing literally sheets of molecules staying together, rising up. They have the energy to create the EZ stimulation in that water mass, and all of a sudden floating up into the air. That's how important the morning and evening sun is for our plants and for ourselves. Hey, Sherry, Ken, have you ever employed flow farms for energizing water? Yes and no. I know next month, we've got Yellow Skunk Farms coming on, and his indoor grow. He actually has a stream in his indoor grow. So you're going to want to check that out. I used actually marbles. I took a funnel. I bought a funnel. I put a bunch of marbles in it, and I would literally pour my tap water through that funnel. And hey, Hunt, it would actually change the flavor. Okay, and the more I did it, I drained that out because I had I have a big beehive, stands, a foot and a half or tall, the large volume, and I would empty that and I'd pour the water back through the marbles. The more times I did that, the sweeter the water got. So what's happening is you're invigorating the molecules, you're breaking them apart, you're separating them, you're energizing them. So if you have a water feature, the availability of a water feature, and you can take that water to water your garden, that's energized water. It's full of life. It's full of ions. That's what ionizers in your homes are all about. It's energizing the water molecules in the air itself. That's a better water. So for your drinking water, you can do the method I just talked about, with just marbles. If you can create a waterfall effect. That's what Mother Nature is doing to energize the water. She's running it through the creek and it's hitting itself. The molecules are hitting each other. They're being energized. That's where we want to energize things as much as possible. And it helps with a vast amount of things. So I want to just touch very quickly on clay. Okay, so clay platelets are basically little circles. Okay, in a healthy soil structure, your clay platelets will form H's. So one on top, one down the center, one on the bottom. It's a structure, and it allows the water to flow through, which again, it's going back and forth. It's energizing. I want you to think for just a moment, if the clay platelets originally are all flat together, which doesn't allow water to flow through, and you add biology, etc., and all of a sudden that clay platelet stands up and forms these structures. How the heck is it doing that, guys? We're talking, something you have to look through a microscope, okay, to really see. And you've got a foot of soil on top. That's a lot of weight. How does it end up being stood up like that and forming this structure? The energy of the structured water, like I was saying, a magnetic levitation, okay, can lift that soil up. That's how powerful this is. You think you have to have a very powerful water pump for a deep well on a property to be able to, conquer the head or the weight from the water above it to push the water up. Okay. You have to have a really strong pump to do that. Well, in our soils, it's being done by the energy of the easy water that is being created in your soil structure. That's just it's a side note, guys, but it's one of those things that I've thought about when, geez, how do these clay platelets stand up? And that's the only method I can understand, and only because I learned from Gerald Pollock how this easy water energizes things. That energy is phenomenal. So if you can energize your water, you're going to be so much further ahead than somebody that isn't doing that, especially if you're drinking that water yourself. It's energized, and then it's energizing you as well, and the water in your body. So that's where the sun gazing, because a lot of that energy is coming from the spectrum, okay, that we see at dawn and dusk. Okay, so your infrareds. Remember, guys, infrared penetrates your soil, more than a foot deep. So the energy is going into your soil. Okay, that's how these water molecules are being energized. That's where grounding is very important as well, guys. And I know I've got Stefan Burns coming on. He's an expert on, the energy around our planet, the Schumann resonance, an expert on grounding, etc. He's coming up here this coming week. We're going to be talking to him about stuff like that. But that energetic flow all works together. We want to energize all of the water around us as much as we possibly can. So you have your gardening water system set up. Are you running just the sprayer, the old school, back and forth, spraying out water, and you see the little rainbows in the sun? That's evaporation, and you're losing it. You're much better off if you have the potential to keep that water at ground level. So if you're gardening, drip systems are an amazing things to have. Timed watering systems where you're not watering in the heat of the day, so you have less evaporation. But if you have a drip system and you've got your mulch covering it, you don't have to worry about that evaporation because the water is underneath your mulch. It's watering your mulch because of the not osmotic pressure, capillary action of the water molecules moving up to keep your mulch moist, but your soil is moist. That's what you want. Remember, we don't want hydrophobic soil. That's where if you really water overly much and you don't have your soil system set up where the water can drain through, you have problems because you're drowning things. Now, if you're like me, you have a heavy clay soil, you have that problem. The water does not want to drain through. Okay, it wants to be held like in a pond. Okay. So the more biology you get in there, the more that the biology is going to work to put enough energy in there, especially if you have plants, because that's drawing energy too, to lift those clay platelets up, like I did in the swampy area in my property, and the water is going to drain through. When you have that, and that's where, if you've never heard of Gabe Brown, that's a gentleman that researched what he's done with his properties just by using livestock to reinvigorate the biology in his soils. I've seen a show where they had a torrential downpour where everybody's fields around him, had standing water everywhere. He went on his field, there was no water. It had all been sucked into the soil system. He could literally drive out onto his, property and not leave ruts. The moisture had just been sucked down. Hey, martial artists, it is so important for that penetration to happen. I know I talked on one of my shows about the Great Wall in Africa where they're planting trees. There's one section, the one video I watched, where they literally had rivers start to flow again by planting trees, etc., and bringing the life back into the soil. They literally were able to have rivers running again, because what they did is the water they were getting, they would stop it, let it sink into the soil. The more water you sink in the soil, once the soil is filled up, the water table rises and you have a creek again, you have a river again. And that is life. Water is life. Without it, we're all pretty much toast. As Food says, water is amazing. And it definitely is. And I want to run the banner, guys, because I have people that are helping with the channel to reach out to different people to help bring guests on. If you have a channel, a gardening channel, anything like that in this methodology, or even without this methodology, you want to come on and tell us about your successes and failures, please reach out by email. It's all about the biology at gmail.com and ask to come on as a guest, and I will send you the invite. That is running across the bottom, guys. So if you want to volunteer to reach out to people, please do so and have them contact me. Us working together as a community, we're going to be having more guests on. I know I've got a lot of guests coming up. I even have, Chris Trump, the KNF guru, is coming on in a couple of weeks. So the more you guys reach out, the more variety of guests we're going to have. And I need your help because I'm only one person. So the more you guys help me out, the better off we're all going to be. So let me get back to the comment section. I know I'm not really looking too much at the comments, guys, but we all work together as a species on our planet. We're all human species. Okay, it doesn't matter anything else. Color your skin doesn't matter. You're a human being. I'm a human being. We need to work together to bring our planet back to health. And that's what the channel is all about. That's what this Conversations in Ken's Cafe is about. We're trying to bring people and knowledge together that can help all of us. That's why, I don't have this under, a paid thing. I'm never going to do that to you guys. There isn't going to be, you have to pay for this information. It's all available for free. If you want to help the channel, you can use the join button and help support the channel that way. but I'm not going to put any of this stuff behind a paywall. It's just not right. There's a lot of people that I've reached out to that said, well, you got to pay me to come onto your show. And I go, well, bye. If you're not willing to share information with our species and help save our planet, then, thanks. Like, it would be different, guys, if it's a live event. And if you want me to come to a live regenerative event, you're going to need to cover my expenses. Okay. That is a totally different circumstance. But on YouTube, just coming and coming on the internet, that's free. Okay. Anyway, to get back to water, I went real sidetrack. Sorry about that, guys. Water, if you have it, it's fantastic. If you don't, you need to create areas on your property where anytime that it rains, you are collecting that water. So, in Africa, they're basically digging, holes, a couple of feet deep, so that when water does flow, it'll settle there and it'll soak in. You need to do that kind of thing on your property to help bring the moisture back into your property. That's what swales are about. You're holding the water as it's flowing, stopping it from just running off your property so that it has time to come in. And no, I don't have merch yet. That's something you need money to buy merch, guys. Okay. And that's not where I'm at with this. So, the more you guys support me, then hopefully soon I'll be able to have, hats and t-shirts and stuff like that, for you guys to grab onto. The more you can slow that water down from just flowing off your property, the more you can have that water penetrate, you're going to be amazed at what can happen on your property and around your property, okay? Because it's going to benefit everybody. As your property fills up, it's just going to spread out. That's where these people have had rivers come back, that have been dried up for decades. They've had them come back. Okay. So, biology stuff, like stuff, for the soil, without that moisture, you can't have the biology. The biology needs those billions of molecules of moisture to have in each cell. Without that, it's not going to be able to produce cells. You're not going to be able to grow plants. You're going to have plants that, are, instead of being, 10 feet tall, are only going to be 2 feet tall because the moisture wasn't there for the biology to build the cells. And so your plant's stunted. That's where, being aware of the water that's on your property, the more you can capture, the better. There's a lot less watering. Okay. So if you're capturing the water on your property and it's being stored in your soil structure, there's a lot less watering that you're going to have to do. So, and if you're in a city and you're paying for water, the less you got to pay, the better off you're going to be, right? It all is a system that can come together with understanding and knowledge. That's where, get Gerald Pollock's book, The Fourth Phase of Water. Actually, guys, this is a gentleman that is committed to helping people. He literally, instead of, having this as a scientific digest or book for the scientific field, which is, $200 or $300 for, different professors to buy, he self-published with him and his son. They've set up their own publishing so that they could keep the book inexpensive so that we can all benefit. So, if you have the availability, and Gerald Pollock has been on our podcast several times. He goes on a lot of different podcasts. You can just, type his name into YouTube, watch some of his stuff. It's absolutely amazing what he has discovered, with water, with this EZ water. Okay, so energized water is wonderful. The other thing is crystals formed from water molecules. Hey, Dr. Levy, crystals are a fantastic energy source that is stable in a soil system. So if you can get some crystals and keep them energized, you can actually put them into your garden. You put them in a flower pot, and you're actually over time will see the difference. If you do a side by side of experiments, it's amazing. They're an energy storage device. Okay, they're starting to look at water molecules and putting them into computers, because you can write information on a molecule of water. This is how phenomenal the potential of water is, where we're just discovering this or rediscovering it. The availability of information you put on one molecule of water far surpasses the highest computer systems that we have. And then draw that memory out of the water. To give you an example, a skin cell has your complete genetic code embedded into that skin cell. So how many skin cells do you have? How many cells in your body? Because they're all the same. They all have your complete genetic information in that cell, held in the water molecules. What else is in that water molecule? All your biology. Is the evolution of our species in there? I don't know. Nobody does, because we haven't been able to read it. But then we're just figuring out how to read DNA and RNA. If the biology transfers information, genetic information between each other, and this is something that Dr. James White found when he was doing his research on horizontal gene transfer, seeing biology moving information around, genetic information, where we've just been able to access that. They've been accessing it for trillions of years or billions of years, or however many years you want to see life on this planet. All that water has that memory. Is in that water the complete genetic code of our entire planet, for everything that's available that was and is going to be developed in the future? Or the dinosaurs, is their DNA in a drop of water that's sitting in the ocean somewhere? Water transfers that energy, transfers that knowledge in between itself. The cleaner our water, when we get rid of the bad stuff that's in our water, it's amazing to see life that hasn't been seen in an area all of a sudden come back into that area. Where did that come from, guys? Where did a crab that hadn't been seen in an area for 30, 40, 50 years all of a sudden come back out of nowhere, where these crabs weren't in the local environment, and all of a sudden they came back? Don't underestimate Mother Nature. She has a lot of stuff that we are on the cusp of understanding as the scientific availability of the machines to read this stuff becomes available. Right now, I like to say, the conspiracy theories that I was looking at, 20, 30 years ago, okay, have all come to reality and scientific reality. And it's like, oh, I got to look for new conspiracy theories here. Like, what's possible? That's why I tell you, anything is possible. It might be highly unlikely, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Anything is possible. It might not be happening on our planet, but this is a pretty big universe. It could be happening somewhere. Whether there's dragons flying in the skies, okay, anything is possible. Understanding, allowing yourself to accept that possible is out there. Nothing is just this little blinder. We've got to take our blinders off and allow ourselves to see potentials. Your garden is a potential. Your plant, the health of your plant is a potential. The health of your body is a potential. To reach that genetic potential, we have to have water, because the cells that the biology are building has to have that water. The cleaner the water, the more minerals, etc., that are available, the better off our cells are going to be. And all of a sudden, we start seeing genetic potential being reached. I've seen it in my grow. Other people have seen it in their grows, where their plants are showing things that they never have seen before, because they're following this understanding of a true living soil. They're understanding that it's the biology that builds all those cells. So they're no longer focused on growing plants. They focus on growing the biology that grows the cells of the plant. And all of a sudden, wow, what is going on? When you have that biology, you have plants that are normally across the world, 2 or 3 feet tall, going to 7 or 8 feet tall. Genetic potential is being released. That's what we want to see across our planet. And that does belong with water and biology, because you can't have one without the other. You have to have both. That's why water is so important, guys. Try to get as clean as water as you can. If you can go to a local river that's clean, you can get water from there, and you don't have to take a huge amount, bring 5 gallons back, mix it in with a larger volume to water your lawn, water your garden, water your crops. A slough hole that has all kinds of life in it, you walk on the edge and you sink, because you step into this muck. Well, that muck, if you gather that muck, that's silt, baby. Take that home, dry it out, spread it across your garden. Okay, it's fantastic stuff. But that water, when you look at it, it's full of life. It's got little snails in it. It's got fry in it. It's got all this stuff in it. All this life. Put the life back into your soil, so that life, that biology that's in that life, can get back into our plants. So when you eat that plant, that biology is going into your gut. It's fixing your body. It's being made available for health for you. When your animals eat that, and then you consume that animal, you're getting it there. So it's a combination of all of it, but it comes down to the biology, the water, and having as many nutrients available for the biology to build cells. So all your carbons, all your seleniums, your all of this stuff, there's 97 trace minerals. If you've got them all available, guess what? You're going to have healthy cells being made. Amazing how that works. The healthier the cell, the healthier the plant, the healthier the human being. So guys, we're at the hour. Tomorrow we have an IPM specialist coming on, so integrated pest management, Claude Roberts from Anatis Bioprotection. Um, guys, just stay tuned. We've got some amazing people coming up. Like I said, Chris Trump is coming up. We've got Gardening Like a Viking, Nate coming up. I'm not going to look at my sheet, guys. If you guys have availability of channels that you've been watching, learning from, and you can reach out to that person, send them my way. I can have them on and as a guest. If you have a channel, you want to come on, reach out. I'd love to have you on. It's much easier for me to talk with people than to people. So don't just leave me sitting here as a talking head, guys. Help me out, reach out to people and have them come on. You guys come on. I'd love to hear from you. And if you guys want me to come onto your channels, we'll talk about that as well. I'm more than happy to come on and talk to your audience about all of this stuff as well. Guys, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And like Lily says, it's all about the biology, guys. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow with Claude Roberts.